resources that we rent. We will be sending you a lot of the resources that we mentioned today and a checklist so that you can kind of manage the different things that you might want to tackle and a lot of the different resources that we're going to cover. So, you know, there's a lot to do as your loved one is becoming an adult, and it can be very overwhelming. But there are also many resources to help you during this transition time for transition age students, including things in the IEP, post-secondary education as a possibility, employment, and more. So in addition to our presentation today, we'll be hosting a number of different presenters over the next few months that will delve further into these topics. So we're going to be having a presentation again on Social Security and also talking about work incentives as part of Social Security. We're going to have a waiver presentation next week from the Lackawanna Susquehanna County Administration. That would really pertain to any county because it's going to talk about waivers and eligibility. We're also going to be having another presentation further out, which is in March. It's going to be about financial planning, like for your loved one, and the things you can do with maybe looking at like special needs trust or your wills, that kind of thing. So, you know, be on the lookout for these presentations, or if you need further information, you're welcome to reach out to myself, Katie, or Mandy, our other advocate, and we can help you, guide you and help you through the process. But today, we're going to keep it focused on what the parents, the guardians, and the families can do. And then again, like we'll be sending those resources and checklists, and we'll have time for a Q&A, or you can throw your questions in the chat as you think of them. So there are important and necessary areas to address as your child becomes an adult. So we're going to, it's vital to have these discussions with your loved one and keep lines of communication open and frequent with both providers, with your schools, and anyone involved with your loved one. So we're going to break these areas down, and generally these are guidelines to follow. It's not set in stone, but these are things that you want to be thinking about, these different stages. So prior to age 18, what you can be doing and working on once your child is approaching or right when they're 18, because that's when they become a legal adult and assumed competent in the systems in the world. Age 21, and there's, or the 22nd birthday, there, you know, with the school system, there's still like, you know, some things up in the air. So we're going to just call it like age 21 or by the 22nd birthday. And then things you can do ongoing, like at any age or even after they become adult, like it's not too late to work on these type of things. So we're going to start here with age 14 through 18. So we kind of picked age 14 because that is in Pennsylvania under our regulations currently when the transition section of the IEP needs to start. So that's why we kind of labeled it 14. Under IDEA, it's 16. Pennsylvania is actually better and stronger at age 14. So it's going to be that IEP cycle when the individual, the child or student turns age 14. So if they're 13 now, but before their next yearly IEP is due, they're going to be 14, then you should be working on that transition section and filling that in at that IEP meeting. So there are many and this is a lot of stuff, but there are many areas have to do with school during this age 14 to 18, because that's like the, you know, transition age, the high school age. And you need to discuss and talk about these things with your IEP team. And there's some other things that you can do yourself or as you know, with your family and with your community connections. So it's going to be important to become familiar with acronyms in the adult world when you're, you know, in these transition ages. And we're going to send you kind of like a transition age acronym list with our resources today that comes from the Arc of Pennsylvania, Include Me, and it kind of familiarizes you because there are so many acronyms like in every world, like, you know, that we live in. So it's just another set of acronyms for transition age and adult services. So first we're going to talk about transition section of the IEP. And again, we're doing top level. We have a whole other presentation we do just on transition in the IEP. So it's a very important area. And again, when your child's turning 14, this should all be filled out. You want to make sure that, just to note that it should be very comprehensive and include solid measurable goals. It shouldn't be goals just pulled out of the other section of the IEP where it's the main goals. These are goals that are directly with transition and related to employment, post-secondary ed, or training, and independent living. You want to make sure that the transition section of the IEP includes structured activities and services that work towards these things. And also, sometimes you'll see at an IEP meeting, they say, they don't really need an independent living goal. It is an IEP team decision if you need a goal in that area, but I would not just focus on independent living being for like, life skills student or a student with more significant needs. But it really could apply to any student with an IEP, and it's an IEP team decision. So, and it includes a lot of other things, like self-advocacy, navigating the community, nutrition. There's a lot of things that can be considered part of being independent living. So if you explore a transition checklist or a roadmap, and Katie's going to put that in our chat, and we'll send you that link to it. It kind of will guide you through some of the things you need to think about in terms of the transition section of the IEP and planning for the future. Next, we're going to touch on another thing that you should be considering at age 14 to 18 is OVR, the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. They can provide a lot of different services, and be sure to connect with these OVR services while you are still in school, because there are certain programs that are eligible to students while they're still in school and not for people in the adult world. And they include early outreach. So some school districts will have like a OVR person that comes into the classroom in the school, and they do general lessons on job-related skills. You can also access by filling out an application and getting involved with OVR, which is known as pre-employment transition services. And I know they recently had some changes in that program, but you're still eligible while you're in school, and you can still access things like job shadowing, assessments, and I think it's one paid work experience. But it's definitely a good piece to connect with, because they can really help you connect and get job training while you're still in school. And then once you leave school, they can help with a lot of different things related to maintaining a job, keeping a job, interviewing for a job, and they also have some post-secondary options. So they're really like a great thing to consider getting involved with during this time span. Next thing I would make to mention is selection of classes. So once you're, and a lot of this presentation is targeted towards individuals with intellectual disability, though it may pertain to people with any type of disability in school. But we really want people to think about the student's interests, let them come to the IEP meeting, even if it's just for a brief time, and to talk about a certain subject. They should be involved in this process, and what type of classes they would like to take. A disability should not limit your child to what classes they could take. If they have an interest in art, they have an interest in woodworking, they have an interest in some type of science, their disability is not supposed to drive that kind of thing. They should have all the supports and services they need. They can pick the electives they would like to have. It shouldn't be like all the kids taken to this elective. So if you see that kind of thing, that's sort of like a red flag. We're not going to just take all the kids from autism support to cooking, for example. If you're interested in cooking, and that's great, you want to take that as your elective, but if you're not and you want to take something different, and then that's the way it should be set up. And then also consider like after school activities, extracurricular options, getting involved in clubs. Like there's a lot of options once you get to high school, and that is a part of the IEP process. So if you need support to access those programs, you should bring that up at your IEP meeting, because a lot of times that's how people build friendships, they build connections, they find their interests they might like to do as they become an adult. The next thing to work on is self-advocacy skills. So it's very important for an individual with a disability, any ability or level, is to develop and practice these self-advocacy skills while they're in school. And that includes asking and advocating for support they might need, or when maybe they don't need as much support and they want to try things on their own. And we really want to foster individuals to grow into adults that are able to make choices and decisions for themselves to the best of their ability. And just remember, behavior is a form of that communication, and students can be advocating for their needs based on their behavior. And it's up to us sometimes to interpret that behavior and teach them alternative skills, because they may not be able to be using their speech to indicate, that they need help or they want someone to back off. And we need to work with them to learn those appropriate strategies to ask for what they want and what they need. And that certainly can be a goal in the transition section of the IEP or in the regular section of the goals in the IEP. Age 14 to 18 is when you really want to look at the comprehensive evaluation being conducted by your school. So even in the past, if you've had like, just say like a record review, or your child has more significant needs where you have in the past have not been able to do cognitive testing, for example, you should still request this testing that you need, because you're going to need this testing to qualify for adult programs, which include like waivers or even for Social Security. So it's really important to make sure these comprehensive evaluations take place probably around 16, 17, I'd say between 16 and 18. And you're going to want to make sure they include cognitive testing, achievement testing, and adaptive functioning at the minimum. There's other things that, we could request based on the student's needs, but you definitely want to have that done by the school psychologist. And even if the student is not able to complete the cognitive IQ testing, the school psychologist can put that statement in there, attesting to that in this report. And that way you can use that when you apply for the adult services. The child, due to their significant level of need, they were not able to complete this IQ testing. It's been determined that based on this, and they have to make sure they're using those standardized tests. The Wechsler is one that should be definitely done. And then again, this cognitive and achievement testing can help you plan for what they're at currently, plan their programming, plan the type of curriculum they might need, what type of goals, and then what supports and services they're going to need. So if you don't have that, you could put it in writing that you would like, your individual student or child evaluated in these areas. And, then the timelines, we can't get into all that today. But if you have any questions on that or how to phrase it or who to send it to, you could certainly reach out to us and we can help guide you. You're going to start thinking about the graduation timeline. So when will he or she graduate? Like, are they going to finish after 12th grade with their class? Or are they going to stay on in some capacity because, they're guaranteed to remain in school? It was the 21st birthday. It was changed to the day before the 22nd birthday. There are schools that did not agree with that interpretation, and there was subsequent overturned, but then the Department of Ed appealed. So right now there's like a stay. So you can stay to the 22nd birthday, but you need to be prepared that could change. So you really want to think about what your student's going to be doing after 12th grade, when you want them to stay in school, and you could change that at any time. It's not like, okay, the beginning of 11th grade, they want to leave after 12th grade, and then 12th grade comes, they could stay and change that. That could be changed anytime before you accept that diploma and sign an exit NOREP that you're leaving school. Just remember when, some people think like my child just doesn't want to be in school anymore and they're telling me they hate school and they don't want to be there anymore. It's not like you're going to school and repeating 12th grade over and over and over again. It does not have to be like that. You have to work with your IEP team to see where their needs are and where best they would be served the remaining years. And you have to remember that you're entitled to be in school. You're not entitled to adult programming. So you don't want to graduate to the couch and be sitting there waiting for programs and things to start. So you might want to work with your school to make sure that things happen while you're entitled to it. You want to think about some of the transition programs that might be options. There's high school years you can be going maybe to the CTC or to a transition program at an agency in the community. I know in Lackawanna County, we have a couple different options, and neighboring counties have other options. Are they interested in college program? There's now a lot of college programs for people with disabilities where they could get like a certificate, or they could do general studies programs. Do they want to go to trade school? Do they want to work? Do they want to attend some type of community program, community participation program, or something like that when they graduate? And what could we do while they're still in school? To get them ready for that future. So we could do some additional training, like I said, at the CTC or a transition program that the school's paying for. and what supports or accommodations are they going to need at these programs, because some of them don't necessarily fall in IEP. And, you know, you need to talk to these different programs to see if, be accepted and see if the student is going to be a good fit there. So you really need to think about in their program what they can and cannot do. Another thing to do that's really important is to get, especially at 18, is to get a state ID, or if your student is going to drive. There are some programs for teaching people with disabilities for to get their driver's license. But if minimum, you should at least get a state identification. And you could go onto the DMV website to see, you know, what you need to bring. But it's usually like your social security card and your birth certificate and a piece of mail, like showing that the individual lives there. Maybe it's their bank statement or some kind of letter they got, school related. And then maybe look at the times, pick a time that's, you know, the DMV is notoriously busy and backed up in that. And that might be difficult for the individual, but you to be waiting during that time. So try to pick a time or call them to see a time it's not as busy and explain their situation. It never hurts to give some background on what's going on, but it's really important for individuals to, you know, have that ID, and also have any kind of personal information or safety information on them if they wander. Maybe you want to consider having like a medical alert bracelet or a tag on their shoe or something if they have some kind of medical that you want people to be aware of while they're in the community. Another factor to consider age 14 to 18 is engaging with and community and transferring skills. So I can't stress this enough. This personally is really important to me because I feel like the special education classroom is teaching skills, but until you apply them into the real world, you want to make sure those skills are transferring. So many schools do these community-based instruction programs where they go out into the community and practice skills that the students are learning in the classroom with money, with, you know, social situations, activities of daily living and reading things in the community. So applying everything you've learned in the classroom to the real world, because, you know, we're all members of the real world community. We're not segregated and separate. So if you don't have that in your IEP when they're in high school, I would certainly ask for that and talk to the schools about how they can start those type of programs, or if that's what your student needs to learn in the real world, then maybe that's something that needs to be created. So, and I believe, and here at the ARC, we do believe that, you know, really anything is possible if you're advocating for it. And there are really some we've seen lots of creative options by lots of different school districts out there for the students. So it's really educating yourself and making those proposals and discussing the reasons why they're needed for the student to make meaningful progress. Next is expanding social capital. And what we really mean by that is we want your loved one to be out and be involved in the community to the best they can be. So finding community activities that your child likes or is interested in or learning more about is really important. And that could be a, you know, special needs type of program, or it could be an all-inclusive type program with, you know, out in the community, out in a church, out in the world. And that really builds people to know people with disabilities, and for your child to know other people, and for those relationships to start, so we can draw on the support of other folks out in the world. And those community-based instruction outings can help with this because they get to know people at the grocery store. I know my son, he's going to be 21, and he's in a community-based instruction program that I created with the school district for him. And he's getting out and he does shopping. He follows a list. He learned how to work the self-checkout. And now, like at Garrity's, he's there once a week and all the people know him. Hi, Hunter, how are you? And if he's not there, it's noticed. So, you know, that's how you build that social capital little by little. Going out to a restaurant, you know, stopping, but even just to pick up the pizza, and your loved one going up to the register to do that. And you're getting to expand your community involvement. And again, starting in those, if you didn't already start when you're younger, starting these years before they become an adult is crucial. And then any communication and technology needed, you really want to discuss that with your school teams, especially. What is the school providing? And maybe you're going to need to find your replacement for that if the school's paying for it or providing those either low-tech or high-tech technologies. how are you going to get that from the adult systems, or should you work on getting that now, finding grants or ways to purchase and provide those. Okay, now we're going to move into age 18. And I know it's a lot, so like I said, we're going to send you a little checklist, but we're just going into things in a little more detail. So as your child is approaching turning 18, that is when they are become a legal adult, and they're assumed that they're competent and able to make decisions unless deemed otherwise. So these are areas you really need to consider leading up to 18, both in and out of school. And again, like I mentioned, school age, a majority is 21. It wasn't changed in the PA code, but the Bureau of Special Education said, you know, we interpret it now as the 22nd birthday. We're not sure where things are now, but most school districts should be following age 22 at this point. Again, those updated cognitive and adaptive functioning evaluations, as I mentioned, that's really important. So, you know, if you're 18 now, or even if you're 19, 20, or 21 and still in school, get those comprehensive evaluations done so that you have them done for Social Security waivers and some other programs. If the schools, you don't agree with the school's testing, you can always ask for an independent educational evaluation. And then you want to make sure that you cover all those applicable areas. Once your loved one becomes 18, if they're having the disability that you don't believe they're going to be able to work, because Social Security is all about ability to work. Once they turn 18, it's no longer based on the family's income because they're considered an adult. So maybe a month after they turn 18, you want to apply for them for Social Security, SSI, which would be supplementary security income. And that's for individuals with, disabilities with no work record, and they have severe disabilities that prevent them from working competitively. And they also have to have limited resources as well. So you can't have a lot of money in the bank under their name. And again, they're going to contact your doctors. You're going to maybe want to have a conversation with some of your physicians, like your developmental pediatrician, if you're working with one, or someone, another doctors or other specialists they have, because Social Security is going to contact them, and they're going to contact the school to get these evaluation reports to show their deficits to see if they're able to work or not. People get confused sometimes about SSI versus SSDI. So SSDI, Social Security Disability, is for individuals who have paid into Social Security. They've worked and they have a qualifying disability now that prevents them from working. But so if you don't have any work record, you're not going to be applying for SSDI. Though, I mean, there's some things where people get switched to SSDI based on their parents' record. But anyway, we can't get into all that today because, like I said, Social Security is another presentation in itself and can be very confusing. So if you get anything out of this today, is that you're going to want to apply for the SSI, and maybe a month after they turn 18, you're going to want to call Social Security or go online. Personally, I feel better calling and making an appointment, because where sometimes I feel better doing something online, for that, it seems a little confusing to me. But everybody's different. So you can go on and start your application or check out the website, even if you just want to. I also would note that if your child, again, some children are covered under SSI due to their parents' income, and then they get redetermined once they become an adult. So that may be your case. But if you weren't able to get it because your income was too high, once the individual turns 18, they may be able to get it under their own. And again, that testing and evaluations is going to be very important, because it's all on the ability to work. And they may send you for their own testing. They may deny you, and you may have to appeal. But at least if you know at age 18, they can apply under their own record. Next, I would say, is you're going to think about power of attorney and guardianship, so you're going to want to look into power of attorney. I mean, I shouldn't say they say, but I've heard a lot of financial folks say that, or maybe healthcare related, more importantly, that power of attorney is really important, even for someone that doesn't have a disability, so that if your other child, say you have another child, or you have a parent, if something were to happen to them, you wouldn't be able to help make decisions on their behalf if they were incapacitated, if you didn't have that power of attorney. So some people feel it's important for everyone. Like I know I have a power, my husband's my power of attorney, and I'm his power of attorney if one of us became incapable of making those decisions. So it's not necessarily just for somebody with disability. But just remember that if once they turn 18, it's assumed they're competent to make their own decisions. So that power of attorney for healthcare or a healthcare directive, you can go on the Disability Rights Pennsylvania, and they have a lot of resources. We had a great presentation on power of attorney guardianship last year from Disability Rights Pennsylvania's attorney, Robert Lodge. And if anybody needs any past presentations, we could get you get you them to look at, or some of them have been recorded like this one. But it's really important to understand the differences between all of these. And again, that's a whole other presentation in itself. But a power of attorney, individual has to understand what they're agreeing to, and they don't need to be able to sign it, or, if they're nonverbal, things like that, they can make their mark or that kind of thing, but they just need to be able to understand what they're agreeing to. And there could be a financial power of attorney or a healthcare power of attorney for financial decisions or for healthcare. And they don't cost a whole heck of a lot of money. So, in terms of, getting them drawn up, there may be a small fee from an attorney. But guardianship, the difference is that's very restrictive. And you have to petition the court. And it takes away the decision-making for the individual, either with financial decisions or with decisions of the person. So, that could cost a couple $1,000s even. Some of them are really expensive, but some may be more straightforward. But we are not at the ARC. We do not recommend any way to take a course of action, but we can certainly provide you a resource list with information on these subjects, and also attorneys that we're not recommending. We're just giving you them in the area that you could call and see if they're a good fit, and you'd like to pursue that. But that's something you just definitely need to think about as your loved one's becoming an adult, because if they normally you do all the talking for them at the doctor's office, or you give them all their medication, and you might not be able to communicate anymore because the hospital system would like to talk to them. And if they're able to do some things and not other things, you really have to have those conversations and discuss what might be best. Also, please register to vote. It's so important. You can do this when you're getting your state ID or your driver's license, or you can get a voter registration card. You can vote in the mail now, or in person. And you have the individuals have the right to vote in Pennsylvania, regardless of disability, or even if they have a guardian. So I can't stress that enough. Making sure we get out there and get our loved ones registered to vote and explain to them the different, all about the process. There's a lot of great resources on ARC US about voting. And then you're going to want to think at age 18, like your senior year, like what kind of activities are you going to do? Like I know my son, like Hunter, he was like, he's still in school, like he's going to be 21, but like when he was a senior, he wanted to be with his class, the kids he was with all along. So he did all the senior activities. He went to the prom. He walked across the stage in graduation in his cap and gown. And then, like you don't have to do that if you don't want to. You can wait and do that later on. But he did that because, we're sure where he was going to end up. And where, he felt like he wanted to participate. So start thinking about those things senior year, and start thinking about what you want to do post 12th grade, and how their day is going to look like. And again, you can change that and adjust it. And if you say you want to stay till 21 and then you decide you only want to stay till 20, then that's what you do. But at least you kind of have like a timeline of what you might want to do. And then, like I said, once you're getting to 21 or right before the 22nd birthday, I mean, people, like if you're turning 22 in September, I mean, maybe some people don't already have their program set up and they don't want to stay till then. Some people want to max out until get all the school entitlement before the school is no longer on the hook for paying for things. So you're going to really want to start exploring and thinking about that stuff, especially as they're getting closer to entitlement ending and entering adult systems. And remember, in Pennsylvania, you're getting a diploma, the same, like other states might be different, but in whether you get graduate on state standards, or you graduate on your IEP, or you graduate at 18, or you graduate at 20, you're getting a Pennsylvania school diploma, which is another good piece of Pennsylvania. School services under IDA and PA code, again, you're entitled to, meaning they have to provide them at no cost and without delay. But when you enter the adult services and you're accessing things like waivers or OVR services, those are things you will become eligible for based on those evaluations and based on eligibility. But you might have to wait to receive them, and you may have to pay towards some of them, or you may have requirements you need to meet. So it's a completely different system. So you're going to want to make sure you stay up on the laws regarding IDA and the ADA and Section 504, which will follow you into the adult world. IDA is until you're in school, but the ADA and Section 504 are for workplace and college and things like that. So you want to stay updated on any changes, because we all know there's lots of changes always happening, and it can be impossible to try to keep up with these things. But at least you keep them on the radar. And we're, like I said, we're still working out through the courts about the age 22. And we're going to be, watching that very closely here at the Arc to see, and we're helping families decide with that kind of thing, what they should be doing and the steps. But be prepared that, you may have to leave sooner if that's overturned. But, your IEP team also, I know of another school district in Pennsylvania, not in our area, that said, we're just going to keep everybody through the 22nd year. So your IEP team can make a different decision that's even better. You're also going to want to think about, and this is another thing we get a lot of calls on at the Arc, if you have utilizing Medicaid early and periodic screening, diagnosis, and treatment, known as EPSTD, EPSDT, that acronym. I always reverse the D and the T for some reason, but those are the services that are covered under medical assistance and PA that provide, that comprehensive preventative health care for children and adolescents, but it stops at age 21. So if you're on medical assistance, which a lot of people are, because in Pennsylvania we have the 95 loophole, and a lot of children are enrolled in Medicaid due to their disability. They're getting speech, they're getting OT, they're getting diapers or adult things like that. They're getting medicine, they're getting home health aides. This is where we really get a lot of calls on. They're getting behavior techs, they're getting nursing, and it's paid for through medical assistance, not from school. These are going to end at age 21. So you might still be in school, even if you're finishing out the year, and how will these services continue if you don't have the EPSTD services anymore? So you really got to talk to your school team about who's going to pick up. Do we have you on the waiver program, and can waiver possibly pay for some of these things? Is the school going to pay for it if they feel it's necessary? Can your private insurance pick up? Just remember that Medicaid is always the payer of last resort, so they're going to expect other places to pay first. So you really need to talk with your providers and your family and your IEP team to discuss these things if you have this level of service or any of these programs while your children is approaching age 21. And if your child is going to need, or they're an adult now, waiver services, and they're not already enrolled, what are you going to do? So you're going to need to go through that eligibility process. And I can't stress enough that you cannot wait until you're 18 or 16 or I don't know. I think you should be like my son. He went through the eligibility process at 10. He had intellectual disability, had autism. And I wanted him, identified and in the system and get eligible for services and get at least that supports coordinator ready and able to help me with things through these transition years. So if you don't think it's too late. So you really, you're going to want to contact, every county is different how they go through eligibility, but you're going to want to contact your county's systems and get that eligibility process started if you've not done it already. So we're going to get into that a little bit further on another slide. But waiver is the program that through Medicaid that pays for home and community-based services. And you must apply to Medicaid as an adult. And again, assets and income do factor into Medicaid. So, you have to consider that. And then just briefly, we're going to say, like, if you're going to move into adult services, what would you like to do? Are you going to try to work, even if it's not competitively? Do you want to access things in your community? What are you going to do after school ends? And again, it's important to have these conversations and explore all different options, because there's not a ton of options out here for kids with more complex needs. Like I said, I'm currently going through this with my own son and exploring different programs and options for him to fill his days and make them meaningful for him. So it isn't really a lot of work, and it can be overwhelming. So I want to try to take these things and not wait until age 21 to do everything we covered on the other slides. So now we're going to just kind of talk about, break it down now in different categories a little bit. So one is, we're going to talk about financial. So you're going to want to consider applying for these things. You don't have to apply, but you want to consider it once they hit 18 or older. So like I mentioned in the last slide, Social Security, supplemental security income, known as SSI. This is individuals with a complex disability unable to work and have limited assets. Again, all around the ability to work. So I would recommend discussing this with your team and your physicians, and let them see what they think and have those discussions. I know I did with my own son, had those discussions with his developmental pediatrician and asked him if he would, help with this process. I asked for the adult functional report. So when you're doing your Social Security intake, they may send you a functional report, or you can ask for one, and it details like where you can put everything about your child and what they need assistance with. So if you have a child or a young adult, I say child because they're always our children our whole lives, as the parents. But if you are prompting or redirecting your child constantly, and it's sad to say you want them to be as independent as possible, but if you have to do that, like I have to prompt my son probably every few minutes or redirect them, keep them on task, then they're really not independent. And sometimes it's hard to be honest with yourself and really think about it in that way, but you're going to want to note and kind of think about that stuff ahead of time. What do you have to do to help them? So that you can be prepared for when you're going through the interview processes for these programs. And it doesn't mean they're not going to have the potential to do things further down the road, but where are they currently at? If you get approved for, and jumping ahead a little bit, because again, this is not a Social Security presentation, but I want people to know that if approved for Social Security, you could apply to be the representative payee to manage your loved one's finances if they are unable to. If they have only basic understanding of money, or they don't have any understanding of concept of money. There's also agencies that can fill this role for people that if, it's not working out, or they're not understanding how to pay their bills. And there's programs that can help them learn that kind of thing. And then they're going to, open a bank account to get the money directly deposited into. If you don't already have that bank account, and you're going to have to think about some of the way their current money is housed. There are work incentives. So of course my son, he wants to work. There are rules. It's not like you don't be afraid to not work at all. There are special rules that individuals can continue to work and receive some form of their Social Security. So, don't be afraid of losing money. If your loved one wants to work. I've been working since I'm 12 in some capacity or other, and I think it's very worthwhile to work. And they may have a lifestyle they want to maintain. So, just think about those things. And then if you get denied, you can appeal. Just keep that in the back of your mind, because many people do get denied initially. I wouldn't say every, and we had a representative from Social Security do a presentation for us before, Franklin Magnite, and he's going to be coming back to do the next presentation. So if you're able to attend that, I would really, that one's really great. So here's some more financial things just to get started at any age. So consider starting these even if your child's younger or they're older, it doesn't really matter. ABLE account is a great tool. They have them in a lot of different states. Ours is PA ABLE. Maybe Katie could throw that up in the chat. They're having a couple of presentations coming up, but you can also just call them, and they're very helpful at explaining it. That will help the individual save for qualified expenses and protect their eligibility for Medicaid and waiver and Social Security. Special needs trusts. there are different trusts that can be set up to manage money or protect assets or money that the individual has earned, so they don't lose their benefits. So, I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with special needs trusts. Again, we're having a presentation from an attorney that's going to be talking a lot about financial planning. So watch for that training. But there are really important financial considerations that can limit access to adult programs. So these are two different options that you can think about or consider starting or accessing to protect your loved one. And also, if you're going to update, and we're going to get onto this in the next slide, be sure that your financial things yourself as the parent or the legal guardian are updated. And we talk about wills and estates, make sure that the beneficiaries are updated and it's updated correctly, because the wrong wording, something happens to you, you're jeopardizing your loved one's access to their programs. So that's a lot of times when those special needs trusts come into effect, is like when, upon your death, the money from that goes to this individual will be going to a third party special needs trust set up to be maintained, in the wording at that time. So make sure that, you do have those wills and estates updated, keep the information in a safe place, adjust them at different stages of your life. So like once, maybe now your children are young, but as they get older and become adults, you're going to maybe want to change some of the things in your will or change how some of it is worded. Or if something changes in your life, you're going to want to make sure that's updated, but make sure people have access and know where that information is. Another great thing is, and this is not necessarily financial, but it could be like kind of housed with your will and estate information, is a letter of intent. I did a training for we have adult parent and caregiver group that we offer at the Arc of NEPA. A lot of the families are aging and their loved ones are, well into their adulthood. And we walked them through a letter of intent. They're getting very nervous. Like if something were to happen to them and their loved one's day would be disrupted and people wouldn't know what they like to do. And so this letter of intent goes through their day-to-day activities of the loved one and tells you like, okay, well, they like to sleep in on the weekends. And then, they like to have their favorite cookie and milk before they go to bed. Like simple things that other people may not know if they're not in the day-to-day activities of their loved ones. And again, you can keep that in a place with your wills and important information and papers. And you can also like keep a copy on your computer and update it like as things change. So I have a link for that. The ARC has a free planning guide and includes a letter of intent and a lot of future planning activities. So we'll be sending that out as well. Next, we're going to touch on government programs. So as your loved one becomes an adult, they're going to maybe have to access some of these government programs, maybe not, but there's some things to keep in the back of your mind. So again, Medicaid is medical assistance, known as medical assistance in Pennsylvania. It's the health insurance that pays for low income and disabled individuals. And there's income guidelines again. You have to have like under 2,000 in the bank. There also, it has to be documentation of the disability, and you can go onto the Compass website to apply for this. And again, you can call or you can go on the website and apply. SNAP benefits. There's a supplemental nutrition assistance program, formerly known as food stamps and food assistance. And some of our folks that have very low income and may not have family to be able to fill in the gaps, they may qualify or need some of these benefits. And then housing vouchers. So some individuals that live on their own or even families, they may need assistance through HUD to pay for housing. So you're going to want to check with your local housing authority where you live. And there also could be other PA programs in addition to the housing authorities that might be able to assist people with disabilities, such as, shared living or rental assistance. And there's a number of agencies that help with this. Again, we could call us at the ARC if you have any questions on these programs. We have resources and connections to everything we discussed today. I mentioned before, Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, really important program for individuals who would like to work. And really important to access those pre-employment services and early outreach while still in school. You can fill out the application and they can help you obtain a job and keep a job. And you can go online for their application. We'll throw that in the chat. That'll be in the resource list. Or you can contact like the career link if you're in Lackawanna, county or nearby. You can even talk to your guidance counselor if the student's still in school. Utilize those guidance counselors. They often are helping people. EOC is another agency that helps. The guidance counselors at your school don't fly under the radar if your child's in life skills or more complex disabilities. Still talk to those guidance counselors. They're there to help every student. So they can a lot of times help guide finding out about jobs or programs. The next we're going to touch on, I know it's a lot, but I didn't want to miss anything. Waivers. So, waivers, which one would you apply for? And we don't really know until we look at our individual circumstances. But waivers are home and community based for individuals with disabilities in Pennsylvania. So most of the waivers that we work in at the Arc is the Office of Developmental Disabilities waiver programs, and they're for qualified individuals that have intellectual disability or autism, and they also have to have deficits in their ADLs, activities of daily living. These programs, you're going to have to be found eligible. There's a waiting list. It is not just for adults. There are medically complex children that could qualify. There are other, sometimes people are on waiver at a younger age before they exit school, and you should at least be identified, and so it can be planned for these waivers as an opportunity if you're going to need them in the future. Just to briefly touch on the ODP waivers, there's the consolidated waiver for the most need. There's no cap. They do cover a lot of people that move into residential. There's the community living waiver. That's the next level. I think it's at 97,000 now is the cap for that to cover services. Then there's the person family directed waiver, which is 47,000 cap with an additional 15,000 for employment services for like supported employment or job coaching, things like that once you're done with the OVR. Then there's some base funding, and that's county specific, and that's block granted money that was given from the state to counties to use at their discretion to bridge individuals that may not have funding or may need coverage in another area. They may be waiting for a waiver, or they may need some service that's not covered under another program like EPSTD services. So the county may allocate some money from their base funding to cover some of this. Again, this is high level. These are presentations in themselves, but just for people to be familiar with them and kind of think about which one you may need or may want to look at being qualified for. There's also what's called the adult autism waiver, and that's age 21 and up with autism and deficits and those ADLs as well. And again, this is where you need that testing. So if you didn't have the testing and you go to eligibility and they say, well, we're going to have to send you for testing, we're going to have to ask your school to do the testing, or they're going to pull the testing, with your release signed. So again, this is adult autism waiver, though, is 21 and up, different from the ODP waivers that are not. And then there's some other waivers that your loved one might qualify for if they have, say, like a physical disability, where they don't have an intellectual disability, say, but they need a lot of physical help. That's Community Health Choices waiver and the OBRA waiver. I'm not real familiar with them. I have set people up on those that have not been able to qualify for the ODP waivers. But you contact an enrollment specialist. But you just, they may have different programs and eligibility requirements. They may not have as many providers that take those waivers to pay. And you can't be on ODP and on the other waiver. I had people accidentally signed up for the CHC waiver by accident when they really should have been on an ODP waiver. I had to figure that out. So there's all kinds of things that could happen, but I just want people to know that there are different options. If you take anything away from this today, is to start thinking about these different waivers and if you might qualify. So here's important areas, just a few top line topics about an ODP waiver, and they're part of the process to obtain eligibility is determined as step one. So you have to become eligible first before you're even going to get to these other things. So if you need any connection in the county you live in to get eligibility, please reach out to us, even if it's not our county, because we know we have a lot of people that come from other counties outside our 7 counties here in the Northeast. We will connect you with an ARC chapter or with, the website for your county. But once you get, so say you're going to you got approved and you're eligible, First things you're going to get is that support coordinator. You're going to get to pick one of those agencies that when you get your letter, it'll say, you know, pick this. Some people, the county does it. I should again, every counties are different. So some counties we work in, the county is still doing sports coordination. Other places you get a choice of an outside agency. Once you pick that, you're going to get your support coordinator. They're going to create an ISP, which is an individual support plan. It's kind of everything, like a blueprint of your loved one and everything about them and what kind of services they need and their medicine, their doctors, like all their different needs, like what it's a really huge comprehensive document, and it can even be a little confusing, I feel personally, the way it reads, but everything about your student, or not your student, your loved one. Then you're gonna, if they do qualify for waiver services, you're going to go on that waiting list, and they're going to be given a status on that waiting list. It's called the PUNS, and it's the prioritization of urgency of need for services, and there are 3 levels. But I would say I'd really advocate as the parent, if you're going to need a high level of support, and we'll get to some of those supports on the next page. If you're going to need a lot of those things when you graduate, to not graduate to the couch and not be doing anything and can't be left alone and that kind of thing, that you're going to want to advocate for your loved one to get moved up to emergency status before they graduate, so they can get a waiver upon graduation. And I have to say, there's a big push after last year. A lot more waiver spots opened. A lot more counties are addressing the students that age out of EPSTD services or that are graduating, to make sure they get at least some kind of funding. So really, it's important to have those conversations. Once you get approved for waiver, they're going to do a support intensity scale, which is the SIS assessment, and they're going to come into your home and ask you like 8 million questions and talk about all the different areas that you need support, how often you need support, and how much support. And again, that's really comprehensive, and it's going to make you really think about all the things that you're doing for your loved one or they need help with. So it's really important to think that through and to be very accurate in your conversation during that piece. And here's some of the supports and services that are needed and you might want to discuss. So you're going to discuss these things with your supports coordinator and think about what your child is going to need as they become an adult. Are you going to, and this is not a comprehensive only list of what's covered under waiver. This is just the main highlights. Respite services. So if your loved one, you need to be with them all the time. They can't be left alone. You need a break. You need to have other children. You have to address their needs, or your aging parents, or, you need that respite, someone to come in and take care of them, or for them to go somewhere. Community participation program, known as CPS. Individual will go to a program, go out in the community, doing activities, volunteering, choosing what they like to do. Also known as sometimes as a day program as well, if they're in a facility. I mean, the Arc, we have a day program, and CPS is a function of it. In-home community supports. So you may have a goal similar, not the same as an IEP, or but a goal in there, and they could be working on things in their home or in the community, say cooking, shopping, taking care of their laundry, even reading goals, or keeping up on current events. There's all different type of goals that can be put in there, and an in-home community support worker would be coming and working with them. Companion services is another area. They could take the individual out to do fun things in the community, like go to their bowling or go out to the movies and accompany them. Supportive employment, if they need a job coach or some other type of support to maintain a job. Supported living, maybe they could live on their own, but they need somebody to come in and help them manage their finances, or help them do a little light cooking and, working on things like that, checking in on them, being there at a certain time of the day. Assistive technology can now is covered under the waiver, or remote supports, meaning different types of technology instead of a person can be covered. Transportation is also something covered. And like if they need transportation to get to their, wherever they're going to their program, and there's a whole other list of things. So it's really important to have that ISP updated and have those conversations with your support coordinator about the type of programming that your loved one's going to need to access the community and their home in a safe and enjoyable manner as they become an adult. Here's just a few other areas to talk about. Transportation. So I mentioned that on the last slide, it could be covered by waiver, but also if they're going to a program, they may need transport back and forth. But also, how are they going to access getting from here to there? And this could be really, think about this with any of your children. Like, are they going to take public transportation? Are they going to be Ubering? Are they going to get their driver's license? How are they going to get a car? How are they going to pay for insurance? Is family going to give them a ride? I mean, we have to get transported to places. I know there's a lot of folks that go to programs and go out in the community, and they may take, like in Lackawanna County, we have Colts busing that provides seats or shared ride programs. So people with disabilities can get a ride to work or to their programs. Other counties may have something similar, but if you're in a rural county, it may be more difficult to obtain this. Transportation can eat up a big part of your budget in one of your waivers. So it's really important to see, is there another way you can do it, or are you okay with using a lot of your money for that? Medical assistance transportation is an option for medical assistance appointments and reimbursements. And some providers for doctor's appointments will transport people. So you're going to really want to explore how they're going to get from here to there, especially if you're a working parent, and, you know, are you going to have to adjust your schedule to give them rides? Housing. So is your loved one going to live at home with you upon graduation and into the future? So maybe you're planning on them living with you for now, but in a couple of years, they might want to move out on their own or move in with a roommate. Are they going to need that waiver assistance, like by living in a community living arrangement, or are they going to just need like some supported living? So those are some things you're going to want to have the conversations with your loved one about. Other areas to consider: adult health care. So doctors, dentists, and specialists. I actually taken my son today to his neurologist, but I need to talk to her because last year she said, like, after he turns 21, he needs to move to an adult neurologist. She's still with the pediatric neurologist. So these are things some doctors are saying there's a hard line. At this age, you have to leave 18. Some of them are 21. Some of them will keep you even longer. You just need to be able to have those discussions. And also, if your medical assistance is changing or your health insurance is changing, that may change who you're going to be utilizing for your doctors, your dentists, and your specialists. So you're going to want to explore with if your child's getting health care from you, are they going to be able to stay till age 26? Are they going to be able to stay indefinitely as an adult dependent? Some insurance plans let you do that. So you're going to want to definitely have those conversations with your medical assistants and your providers and your health insurance. So you don't want to be stuck at the last minute without a doctor. And also behavioral health. So if you're getting behavioral health technician, some of those services will end at 21, and you're going to have to move into an adult type of psychiatric service. So you're going to want to start exploring with those doctors and those therapists as well. Prescriptions. So are costs going to go up or down? Are you going to have to change how you get your prescriptions? Have those conversations, check with your insurance programs. And decision-making. So who's going to help the individual make decisions about healthcare, and do they still want you to go to their doctor's appointments with them? Do you still have to help them? And are you going to have to sign any forms, or they're going to have to sign any forms, I should say, with the medical provider in order for them to talk to you? Or are you going to need to supply those guardianship or power of attorney documents to all the different doctors you work with and all the insurance companies? You're going to have to give them a copy. So you might want to keep a copy on you as you go to the different appointments, or scan a copy and at least keep a copy on your phone. Nutrition, talk about the loved one, how they're going to be preparing their meals, whether they're going to be eating. You're in school and you might have breakfast at school and lunch at school and then have dinner. But if you're in a different program, that might change. And, you want to talk about eating healthy and exercising and maintaining proper nutrition. Safety. And this is a big one, I know, for me personally, because my son does very little regard for safety. Like, he doesn't, teaching him for years to try to look crossing the street. He looks, but he's not really paying attention, seeing what's there. So, in regards to crossing the streets, getting out of cars, stranger danger, like, do they know if somebody's not, if they shouldn't let somebody into the house, or they shouldn't leave with a stranger, all those safety concerns, emergency calls and that kind of thing. Also, like, the chemicals in your house, are they, do they understand that stuff is poisonous? Do they understand the stove is hot? There's all those emergency safety things that really need to be considered and are often really hard to teach. But it's not really best to not teach them, because long-term safety, keeping them isolated or separated from things is not going to necessarily protect them. So you really want to keep those emergency contacts handy. Fire EMS, you can notify them. You can get on your local 911 center that you have a loved one with a disability and it might not answer commands. You can register them. Every community has something different, but you can inquire with your 911 center or your police or fire department. Some of them, now the state police has this autism card you can carry in your wallet or your car, filled out, that they could hand to the police when they give them the identification, letting them know like there's someone with the autism or intellectual disability of the car that might not respond. There's a lot of different emergency type things you could do. And again, that identification we began on the first page is like getting them used to carrying their state ID, wearing that safety bracelet or tag, you know, if they're wander off or something like that, making sure that, you know, that you're protecting them the best you can in the community while still letting them maintain their person. You know, obviously we don't want to do any kind of restrictive procedures and stuff like that if we can help it. But, you know, keeping that stuff is just really important to teaching them safety and not giving up on that, but also protecting them in the community. Communication, you want to make sure they have that reliable communication system. If they're using like a augmentative communication device, making sure they're, you know, using it across all areas, that they have it not just at school. Like a lot of times we'd see that we're like, oh, it only stays at school. Well, we need to get them a device they could take everywhere. So you want to make sure that's handled. And also if they have a preferred method of communication or they need a backup in case something happens to that, we want to make sure that's all stated on all documents that pertain to the student. And then, you know, individual understanding of safety. So like, I know I was petrified with my son that like he did not understand like things were hot. I was afraid he was going to get burned. Afraid he would get a cut on a knife. Like I was, even though he didn't grab any of that stuff, I was just afraid. But through his community-based instruction program, you know, they taught him how to cut with this special type of plastic knife so he could actually learn to cut things, but he knew the other one was too sharp and he should stay away from that. He learned how to, you know, do cook and stuff and keep very careful near the oven and turn on the hot water and the cold water together so it wasn't too hot. There's a lot of things that you can work on while you're still in school, you know, about navigating the community, safety, and all that type of thing, while you're still in school, but it's never too late to learn. So if your individual is older, still you can always be working on those type of things. And then lastly, briefly, we're going to touch on other supports that we didn't cover today. And just want to mention that natural supports are family and friends that naturally help. Didn't realize how much stuff I was actually even doing for my own son until I did that assessment. And I'm like, wow, he really needs a lot, because you're just doing it naturally. You're just doing it because you just do it because you're the parent of the loved one. So think about those natural supports and things you can draw on, like, you know, family and friends that are willing to help your loved one or that do it just because they love them and they're, you know, out of the goodness of their heart are helping them. And they're really your people, and you might have to draw on them at different times in your life. So building those natural supports and thinking about them is important. And then support groups. So if you can join other families that are going through similar things, that may be helpful to you because they may have gone through it already. I know I draw on people that have gone through things before I did quite often. And if you can't get out, there's like a lot of like online support groups and social media groups that you could connect with. Self-direction, I need to mention that today because I think it's very important. It's known as self-direction. It's participant-directed services through the waiver in Pennsylvania, and allows people with disabilities to manage their own services, and their family member could help manage that for them. And that way you could maybe hire your own folks and make your own decisions about support you need. Some people may be afraid to take some of that on, but it definitely can be helpful and something to consider. And then also social and recreational opportunities. We all, you know, like to have different things we'd like to do for fun and to relax, and that should be no different for our loved one with a disability. We don't, you know, want them to be stuck home doing nothing. So we want them to get out and have socialization and have fun. And there is quite a bit of things out there if you look for it. There's a lot of different leagues. There's a lot of different recreation programs like Special Olympics. People can volunteer and they can go to church and be part of other communities. You know, whether civil communities or other type of organizations, there's really something for everyone out there. Sometimes it just takes a little digging to find it. We have a ton of resources at the Arc for camps and activities. So, and groups and stuff, so feel free to reach out to us. We'll try to connect you. And I know that was a lot we went through today. I hope it was helpful to people planning for the next stage. And we have time for questions. Here's our contact information. Please reach out anytime. We will try to help you. We are a 3 advocate part-time department, and we all are very passionate because we're all parents of individuals with intellectual and developmental disability. We try our best to get back to people in a timely manner and connect them with services. So please know we will get back to you, and feel free to email us at any time. And thank you again for joining us. And we will be sending out all the resources and like a little checklist to everybody and a copy of our presentation. So Katie, if you want to stop the recording now, that would be great.